Well, I have an extra skincare routine because I just flew back from Austin, was there for a conference this week.
What type of conference?
Well, it was a SaaS conference and then it rebranded mid-conference. So it was SaaStock Austin, spoken at SaaStock in their flagship event in Dublin. I've spoken there since 2018. And literally during the speaker dinner, the founder of SaaStock says, "This is going to be the last SaaStock ever. You're in the room for the last one ever." He had a pregnant pause. Because we're rebranding, so they're now the Shift AI, which I think it just says SaaS is not cool anymore.
Not only that, so it's like, oh, yuck, you went to a SaaS conference? So uncool, Kyle. How can a conference, the last in real life thing we do, be AI?
The AI is just going to all be doing its thing, and we're going to have to be meeting outside of the AI. But yeah, I guess will people be bringing their Claude along to the meetings and be like, "I've got to save this as a skill"?
How many tokens were consumed during this conference?
It was kind of surreal to be like at the funeral of SaaS, which that's like literally what this felt like. Not only was the conference rebranded, which, after almost a decade, having all of their branding be around SaaS and now to leave that, but even just meeting a bunch of companies, like it felt like a lot of folks had a bad Q1, are worried about layoffs, are worried about if they're still relevant in the age of AI and how to reinvent themselves. Like everyone's going through an identity crisis right now.
So you've done this event in prior years. When you looked at like all the booths that were there and the logos, were there familiar faces or had it turned over?
Honestly, I skipped the vendor hall.
Wait, you went to the conference and didn't go to the vendor hall?
I mean, I am like a borderline introvert. Every other event I've been to like this has been like for my job at OpenView. And, I'd go to a conference and then I'd be like setting up meetings around the conference and like there all day at happy hours after. And I was like, hey, I actually don't really need to do that anymore. I work for myself. I went for a nice walk around Lady Bird Lake with Brendan Short, who writes the newsletter, The Signal. He's an awesome guy. I had drinks on a rooftop with CRO of a hot legal AI company that we might talk about later. I avoided the actual conference outside of speaking.
Well, that's a shame because my leading indicator for economic growth or contraction is the quality of the swag at these conferences. If you check the thread count on the t-shirts, is the world going to end or are we at peak bubble where they're getting the really nice ones?
I wish I could report back and tell you. My guess is that it was a lot of plastic sheets.
A lot of Gildan triple XL t-shirts, the type that like if you go to the gym, you instantly sweat through it.
It just falls apart. Yeah, that's my guess. I mean, maybe some of these AI companies were different, but with this focus on SaaS, it's a tough time for the industry. Well, they did do one thing that was kind of interesting, though. So the conference was kind of an unconference. So they had some speakers, but the main thing was they wanted to match make people and have a bunch of meetings. So like just set up thousands of meetings. And a hack that someone I met did was if you are a software buyer, you get in free if you're willing to take at least 2 meetings with vendors who are trying to pitch you. The thing is, if you're like a CRO of a SaaS company that sells to SaaS companies, you could take these meetings, get in for free, but then reverse pitch.
This sounds like the Always Sunny episode when Mac and Dennis sit through the timeshare pitch and then they leave buying 3 thinking that they can vacation for free and rent out the other 2.
If we buy a second week and we sell that, we're vacationing for free. What happens if we buy a third week and sell that?
We're getting paid to vacation.
I could picture some CROs thinking they're doing that, just banking credits.
So, I mean, Jason Lemkin at SaaSer, he's all into AI. He's talking about his AI agents like every single day on LinkedIn. When it comes to the SaaSer branding, they just like added AI. They're now SaaSer AI. That doesn't feel very long lasting to me. When are they going to get a rebrand?
I'm just going to call it the elephant in the room, Kyle. I feel like you're implying that SaaS is toxic.
I'm implying that I think people are really not interested in going to a SaaS conference right now. Even if they work in SaaS, they're all trying to figure out how to adopt AI. When you think about like SaaS playbooks, we've had SaaS playbooks for the last 20 years. And sure, there's some like new additions to them. But I think when it comes to learning new stuff, most people aren't trying to learn that. They're trying to learn like the next playbook.
I get the learning part. I've always looked at conferences like learning was probably like fifth on my list. It was more about having a compelling event to get people in the same spot to meet with them. So I agree with the matchmaking model. I mean, this is like what corp dev people live on. Just show up to one of these conferences and try to find some alpha.
No one wants to show up in the first place to learn. And like that's kind of the initial product. And then everything else gets wrapped around that. If you look at like a Maven courses on AI can get thousands of people signing up. Brendan was telling me he did his first webinar through the Signal, and he just, set up a link through Zoom webinars, put it on Luma, and said, hey, we're capping this at 800 attendees. He sold out of spots for his webinar. It was getting real life go-to-market operators to show what they're building. And that's just so much interesting for the average person right now.
If this was the last typical SaaS conference, would you be sad? Would you be nostalgic? How would you feel?
I would be nostalgic because I've been to SaaS conferences for 10 years. SaaStock US, been to SaaStock Europe. I'm actually going to SaaStock in Croatia. Not only have I been to like a million SaaS conferences, I've been to a million SaaS conferences that have SaaS in the name of them. What drew me to the industry in the first place, it's a tight-knit group. It's people that are really passionate about what they're doing, constantly kind of thinking about how to get better, but still collaborative with other people. Like the industry is not trying to like keep a bunch of secrets. Like a lot of people are very open about what they're doing. And it's also just great to see people in the industry in person. So I will still go to events, but I am probably okay with this being the last.
If 15 to 20% of marketing budgets each year go to these types of events, I wonder where that gets redeployed.
To the new AI events. No, actually, I do think virtual events in general like are probably going to become even more of a thing. I mean, they're already taking off. Claude Code in go-to-market, for example, was not really talked about at all until maybe January or February. And then a couple of people started being like, this is the coolest thing. Even though you don't know how to code, you got to use Claude Code. Now that's everywhere in my LinkedIn feed. If I were SaaStock organizing this conference and finding speakers and topics 6 months in advance, which I know they did, that would not have been on my radar when I would be thinking about content. And so I think being able to figure out like what everyone cares about and how that ties into your product and organize like more curated events around that, just way more adaptive to the market right now.
SaaS conferences are dead. Long live SaaS conferences.
When I looked to set up my first CRM at Growth Unhinged, I knew I wanted something that was actually AI first. The world has evolved. Most CRMs are still stuck in the 90s. I found Lightfield, the CRM that remembers everything and does the work for you. It joins all my sales calls, reads my emails, and has the full context on every account. At this point, Lightfield knows my deals better than I do. I haven't had to set up a single CRM dashboard. Instead, I simply ask Lightfield questions like, which deals in my pipeline are most likely to close, or who do I need to follow up with today? It even automatically prepares me for meetings with a personalized daily briefing, and setup was quick and surprisingly painless. Lightfield is my sales coach, RevOps analyst, therapist, EA, all in one. See Lightfield for yourself with a 14-day free trial. Connecting data from your inbox takes just 5 minutes, and you can migrate in under an hour. Go to lightfield.app, that's LIGHTFIELD.app, and use code MOSTLYGROWTH to get 3 months free.